What's up, horror lovers? Picture a cozy two-story home, moonlight flickering off the gutters, and a 10-year-old kid who just gained the best roommate ever, Grandma. She barged in 6 months after Granddad's funeral, armed with bags of boiled sweets, bawdy laughter, and a thunderous energy that rattled every picture frame. The parents? They grumbled. The kid? He worshipped her. How could he not? The woman slipped candy like contraband and blocked every scolding aimed his way. Yet beneath her mischievous grin lurked a vault of bedtime tales that cracked open only after lights out, when the hallway shadows stretched long. On this particular night, oh, brace yourselves, Grandma shuffled close, eyes gleaming electric blue, and whispered about a thing that lives in the steam. Something she called Mr. Longfingers. Ever felt pure dread drip down your spine faster than shower water? Yeah, the kid was about to learn that sensation would haunt him for life. Grandma's storytelling cadence hit like a jazz riff, short, sharp, hypnotic. She framed World War II memories beside seaside pranks, sprinkled occult anecdotes like seasoning, then dove headfirst into terror. Ouija boards? Been there. Tarot spreads? Flipped them. Fortune-telling? Pulled aces every time. Most of her spooks fizzled once the bedroom lamp clicked on, but tonight she killed the switch completely, leaving only the gray glow of streetlights slashing through curtains. She leaned so near he could smell root beer, flavored sweets on her breath. Sensitive folks need baths, not showers, she rasped, voice suddenly grave. Close your eyes under running water for more than 10 seconds, and you're playing tag with something hungry. She let silence bloom until his heartbeat filled the void. Here, tap, tap, tap on the glass. Promise me you'll never open those pretty lids. Humor break. Sheesh. Thanks for the relaxation tips, Granny. But the joke died in his throat when her face stayed stone-cold serious. That night, sleep abandoned the kid, like a rat deserting a sinking ship. Every time his lids fluttered shut, he pictured enormous eyes hovering behind the glass of his window, tracking his breathing. When morning finally dragged him to school, he caught himself blinking rapid fire, terrified of the dark behind his own eyelashes. Shower time. A carnival of panic. Shampoo foam slid over his brows, and the mental countdown began. 4, 5, 6, each second a hammer hit. By 9, he swore he felt a pulse in the humid air, like lungs inhaling, just beyond the curtain. At 11 he bailed, snapping his eyes open, suds stinging like ground glass, because anything, was better than meeting Mr. Longfingers blind. He'd peer past the fogged cubicle, chest heaving, scanning tiled corners for silhouettes. Finding none never comforted him. After all, hide-and-seek champions know when to stay invisible. Mom noticed the new routine fast. Midnight screams, frantic showers, bleary mornings. One late hour she patted in and found him trembling, sheets soaked. He spilled everything. The rule of 10 seconds, the demon in the steam. Mom's expression curdled into fury. Not at him, but at the woman dozing peacefully across the hall. Walls are thin. The kid heard the parental showdown, Mom hissing, Dad mumbling, Grandma's legend dissected like a frog in biology class. Next evening Grandma sat on his mattress, moonbeams stitching silver into her hair. No thrill-seeking tonight, just a sad half-smile. Sweetheart, she crooned, I'd fight the devil himself before I let harm touch you. Maybe I spook you too much. Tell you what, I'll face Mr. Longfingers, scare him off for good. Deal. The child nodded, though a prickle of unease crawled across his scalp. Dark humor aside, who volunteers for a duel with the shower stall demon? Dawn broke a week later to a thud, like wet meat hitting tile. The boy jolted upright, ears straining. Parents slept, but water roared somewhere down the hallway. Skin buzzing with horror, he sprinted, palms slamming the bathroom door. Grandma. No answer. He twisted the knob, unlocked. Steam belched out, kissing his cheeks with scalding fingers. Through the haze, he spotted her crumpled form in the cubicle, water pelting her motionless body. One hand clutched her chest like a wounded sparrow. The other smeared frantic strokes across the glass, jagged lines still dripping condensation. Dad yanked him aside. Chaos detonated. Sirens whined. Textbook heart attack, claimed the paramedics. Quick. Painless. Sure, if you ignore the terror carved into those drag marks, the kid thought, eyes hitching on the pattern. 5 sweeping arcs on the interior, and 5 mirrored arcs faintly etched outside the stall, as though another hand had met hers halfway. Funeral flowers wilted, but the memory stayed razor-sharp. Years ticked by. The boy morphed into a man, married, sired kids, and never once stepped beneath a showerhead. Family bathed, he soaked. They humored his quirk, chalked it up to childhood trauma. He cracked self-deprecating jokes. "Hey, cheaper water bill, right?" And laughed whenever they teased, though his laugh had a hollow clank like pipes in winter. Late nights found him tracing invisible circles on fogged mirrors, remembering Grandma's vow and the price she paid. Did she really frighten Mr. Longfingers away? Or did she merely distract him long enough for a small boy to survive? The unanswered question gnawed like rust. Fast forward to tonight. The man stands in his tiled bathroom, clawfoot tub, filling with lavender-scented water. Down the hall, his eldest kid complains, "Why can't we just get a normal shower like everyone else?" He forces a grin, mutters something about tradition, but dread slithers beneath his ribs. Because he's noticed a change. Lately the tap water runs hotter, produces thicker clouds of steam. He's caught himself timing blinks again, 4, 5, 6, and swears he feels a presence regrouping after years in exile. Paranoia? Maybe. But then again, predators are patient. They wait generations if they must. So here's the takeaway, horror lovers: soap up, rinse off, live your bliss, but remember the unwritten rules. If you must shower, keep those eyes open. Count seconds like they're lifelines. And if a gentle tap-tap-tap greets you from the glass, don't turn, don't peek, don't breathe. Because somewhere past the fog, Mr. Longfingers is rehearsing his encore, nails clicking a beat Grandma once tried to silence. And next time, there may be no brave old woman to scratch a warning on the outside. Sleep tight and maybe invest in a decent bathtub. Tonight we tunnel into a memory that clawed its way out of a locked cellar in my brain, my 5th birthday night. Picture chipping dinosaur-themed wallpaper, a sugar crash from too much cake, and Grandma Agatha's crooked grin hovering in the hallway light. Therapy finally picked a padlock on that evening, and now the scene plays in HD. A scared kid hugging covers to his chin while Grandma's, extra present, squats on the bedside table like a stowaway gremlin. The main gift, plastic monsters in my pocket, was cool, but this secret bonus, a faceless knitted doll no taller than a soda can, stitched in bone-white yarn, its marbled eyes catching every shard of moonlight. Even before the story started, that thing made the shadows thicken, made stuffed animals look like stunned witnesses. Why did Grandma choose that token of affection? And why did my stomach twist every time its button eyes glinted back at me? I stalled bedtime the way kids beg for just one more cartoon. "Nothing too scary, Grandma," I pleaded, already uneasy. Agatha raised a silver eyebrow. That was like asking a shark for a gentle nibble, but she humored me. She snapped the lamp back on, sat at the foot of the bed, and spun a yarn that smelled of brine and candle soot. While she spoke, the doll loomed at peripheral vision range, half in, half out of the glow, as if leaning closer for the tail. Its silhouette felt alive, and the way Grandma rested her palm beside it, almost possessive, made goosebumps sprout up my arms. Somewhere outside, the coastal wind rattled the gutters. Inside, her voice dropped low, conspiratorial. "Let's talk about a young woman who lived by the sea, innocent as fresh linen, until 3 wolves in school uniforms crossed her path." I swallowed, nostrils full of dust and distant salt, bracing for the plunge. The heroine, Agatha said, spent afternoons painting gulls and reading adventure novels by a crackling hearth. She loved 2 people fiercely, her hard-working mother and her grandmother, a frail sage rumored to know every secret tide and shadow. One early summer day, walking home along a hedge-lined lane, she met a boy with an untucked shirt and a cigarette dangling from his grin. He offered a glimpse of a newborn puppy stashed just over that stile. Classic lure, right? Yet the girl's heart thundered with puppy dreams, pink tongues, wagging tails, unconditional affection, and caution slipped through the cracks like sand. She stepped off the familiar path, stomping through thigh-high grass behind him, each footfall a drumbeat counting down to something venomous. The sun inched west. Sparrows quieted. The barn they approached stood hulking and lopsided, its boards weathered to scab brown, its interior yawning blacker than a swallowed scream. Inside, air smelled of hay rot and rusted tools. "He's right at the back," the boy coaxed, sweaty palm clamping hers. Before she could muster a polite excuse, two larger silhouettes peeled from the gloom. Older brothers, laughter sharp as broken glass. The girl's blood iced as the trio hemmed her against splintered beams. "We'll skip the brutal details. You can hear the ragged breaths, taste the metallic panic, imagine the agony." By the time they finished, the barn's silence felt like a lid sealing a grave. Sunset painted the sea crimson as she limped home, knees buckling, shame and terror knotted under torn clothes. She collapsed inside the cottage doorway, sobs shaking every rib. This is where the tale should fade to therapy bills and trauma, right? But Grandma's voice curved into something darker, richer, because the oldest women in certain bloodlines keep arsenals that don't clink like steel, but whisper like yarn sliding over needles. The girl's grandmother knelt beside her, ancient eyes blazing glacier blue. When the confession spilled, every violation spelled out between hiccuped cries. The crone's face turned unreadable stone. "Come with me," she ordered, leading the girl into a chamber long avoided. Walls hung with oil paintings of storms, shelves cluttered with horned idols, jars swirling with something that wasn't quite dust. From a cedar chest, she drew dozens of identical knitted dolls, blank faces, eerie gaze, then selected 3 and lined them on the rug. Needles gleamed black as crow feathers, yarn, pitch dark, pooled at her feet. "Describe them," she murmured, hands already flying, lips chanting syllables that made the candle flames crawl sideways. The girl spoke, height freckles, sneers, while stitches cinched tight, shapes taken, essence captured. With twilight bleeding through lace curtains, 3 miniature effigies sat finished, button eyes mirroring the raw terror they'd inflicted. The final instruction dripped like poison. "Guard these dolls, and they will obey you." 2 dawns later, the cottage door banged open. Grandmother barged in, newspaper trembling. Headline: 3 brothers tortured and killed in brutal mass slaying. Every grisly detail mirrored the defiled dolls, pins through eyes, flames below the waist. The girl, Agatha, simply smiled a crescent moon smile and guided the old woman upstairs. In her cupboard, a shoebox waited, cotton lining scorched, yarn melted where it had kissed fire. Pins still quivered in cooling wax of knitted flesh. "They won't hurt anyone now," she breathed, voice as calm as tide pools. The grandmother recoiled, horror etched deeper than her wrinkles. But the deed was etched deeper still, in char, steel, and silent obedience. Agatha had exchanged innocence for sovereignty, sealing a contract inked in someone else's screams. Grandma paused her storytelling here, eyes glittering at the memory, like someone recalling a fond teenage prank. "Back in my bedroom," present tense. Her lips curled into that familiar cat-got-the-cream grin as she clicked off the light. The darkness seemed to tighten, thick as tar smoke. "See, a happy ending," she purred. My stomach lurched. One puzzle piece slammed into place. Agatha wasn't just the protagonist. Agatha was my grandmother. Heart jackhammering, I blurted, "Isn't your name Agatha?" She kissed my forehead, breath sweet like clove candy. "Time for sleep, Christopher. And remember, that present is there if you ever need it." Door clicked shut. Silence bloomed. Moonlight tiptoed across wallpaper until it settled on the knitted doll. Button eyes glistened with puppy dog innocence, or maybe predatory gleefulness. The air smelled suddenly of burnt yarn. I yanked covers up, but duvet felt paper thin against whatever power ticked inside those stitches. Somewhere downstairs a floorboard groaned, as though the house itself bowed to an unseen matriarch. So, horror lovers, what would you have done at 5? Hug the doll for comfort, or lock it in a lead box, drop it into the deepest trench, and pray water pressure crushes curses? Decades later, I still wake tasting smoke and yarn. The doll remains sealed in my attic, triple-wrapped. Yet some nights I hear faint clacks, like knitting needles tapping out a patient rhythm. I picture 3 brutalized brothers staggering through endless barns, searching for restitution. I picture Grandma Agatha smiling in whatever afterlife lets her weave fresh justice. And I wonder, if a monster ever corners my kids, will I be brave enough, or desperate enough, to untie those linens and let the blank-faced sentinel do what it was born for? Think on that next time you unwrap a bonus gift from an eccentric relative. Segura essa, because the next bedtime story knitting itself in your rafters might be begging for fresh pins and a little flame. A story so chilling that it'll stick with you long after you finish to hear. This isn't just any old war tale. It's one that creeps up on you with the cold and silence of the Swiss Alps, where the real enemy wasn't the Nazis, but something far darker. It's a story from World War II, where my grandpa was stationed as a British infantryman. He thought he'd be serving in exotic places like Tunisia or the Pacific, but fate had a different plan. Instead, he was stuck in a remote Swiss village, where the real terror would be buried under feet of snow and the whispers of something monstrous. Switzerland, trying desperately to stay neutral during World War II, was the last place my grandpa ever expected to be stationed. But when the Nazis began threatening the Swiss borders, Britain sent reinforcements. His mission seemed simple: defend a small village nestled in the Alps, far from any major battles. The advantage? It was almost impossible to access, so the village seemed safe from any invasions. The disadvantage? It was completely cut off from the rest of the world. The snowstorms buried the roads, and all communication with the outside world was severed. My grandpa and his comrades were trapped, isolated from help, and soon they found themselves fighting something much darker than any enemy they had ever trained for. The village, with a population of about 500, became more isolated as the weeks went on. With the sun barely peeking over the mountains, the soldiers lived in a state of perpetual dusk. The village was nestled between two large mountains, casting long shadows that stretched from sunrise to sunset. The snowfall was relentless, and the communication lines with the outside world were buried deep. Everything seemed quiet, but one night, the calm would be shattered. My grandpa and his comrades were at the local tavern when a group of villagers approached them, one of them looking visibly upset. The villagers spoke in broken English, and after some confusion, a translator revealed that children from the village had gone missing. At first, the missing items were just things like wood and tarps from people's sheds, but the disappearances grew stranger. One villager reported that his family heirloom, a ceremonial halberd, had disappeared, and then the children started disappearing, one after another. The first missing child was assumed to have gotten lost in a snowdrift or possibly been attacked by a wolf. But more children followed. The father of two missing boys came to the tavern that night, frantic after searching everywhere, but found no trace of them. He had even organized a search party. The captain of my grandpa's company promised to look into it, ordering patrols to search the village at night. But the disappearances continued, and then something much worse happened. That night, my grandpa and a few soldiers were on patrol when they saw something they couldn't explain. A figure was peering through the window of a villager's house. At first, it didn't notice them, but when they shouted, it bolted, running away into the night. The soldiers chased it through the melting snow, desperate to catch whatever was behind the disappearances. The figure led them to the outskirts of the village, where the snow was still deep. It seemed to vanish into thin air, but when the patrol got closer, they saw it had jumped into a cave carved out of a snowdrift. The soldiers, frantic, called for the figure to come out, but gunshots exploded from the cave entrance. Without hesitation, my grandpa and his comrades began firing into the hole, hoping to stop whatever was inside. After what felt like hours, but was only a couple of minutes, one soldier volunteered to crawl into the cave and investigate. He emerged moments later, his face white as a sheet, shaking with horror. My grandpa, flashlight in hand, shined it into the cave and saw the grotesque truth that had been haunting the village. The figure they had been chasing wasn't just any stranger. It was Reginald, one of their own soldiers, who had gone missing weeks before. And Reginald wasn't alone. The cave was filled with the bodies of 7 partially eaten children. It was then that they realized the full horror. Reginald, driven mad by the stress of isolation, the darkness, and possibly something much more sinister, had gone completely insane. He had been abducting the children in the dead of night, using the stolen ceremonial halberd to dismember their bodies and hide them in the cave he carved into the snowdrift. His descent into madness was horrifying, and his actions even more grotesque. The missing children, the stolen items, and the terror that gripped the village all led back to one man, Reginald. But the nightmare wasn't over yet. The soldiers had no idea how deep Reginald's madness went or if any other horrors lay hidden in the snow. My grandpa always said that it was easier to fight the Nazis than to confront the darkness that resides in the human mind when pushed to its limits. He carried that story with him for the rest of his life. And while the war ended and life moved on, the village and its secrets stayed with him. He never looked at the mountains the same way again. And I don't either. I still remember the way he looked at me when he told me that story. The fear, the horror, the disbelief. Because the real enemy that winter wasn't the cold, or the snow, or even the Nazis. It was the madness that can take root in the heart of a man, turning him into something monstrous. And sometimes, just sometimes, the worst monsters are the ones that we create ourselves.